Angry Aussie Gamer is the screen name of a Reddit user who had had enough with his annoying neighbor. He's also a skilled mechanic. His love for cars started when he was just a teenager. He loved to open the hood of a car to find out what made it tick. He loved to do little jobs. When he grew up, he decided to get his vehicle maintenance certificate, so he began an apprenticeship. It didn't take long for him to become an expert in his trade. He needed these skills to finally get back at his neighbor. At one point or another, most people will have a horrible neighbor. The neighbor can be loud, stomping on the floors upstairs all the time. Some neighbors throw wild parties and keep you up all night. Finally, there are some neighbors who can't seem to park their cars on their own side of the garage. Angry Aussie had a neighbor who refused to park where he was supposed to. He warned his neighbor many times not to block him in. His neighbor never listened, and each time his neighbor was blocking him again. Finally, he had had enough. His rage had boiled to the point where he decided he had to do something crazy to get his neighbor to park correctly. In the building where Angry Aussie lived, there were assigned parking spots for each apartment block. The concept was very simple. Each apartment had 2 designated parking spots, with each spot facing the other. This worked great because everyone could coordinate their vehicles so that nobody had to park against the barrier. Angry Aussie had a parking plan so that nobody would ever get blocked in. He left the furthest spot open for visitors. When someone told him they were coming over, he made sure to park his car in the spot against the wall. This way his guests could come and go when they needed to. Unfortunately, his horrible neighbor continued to mess up this perfect parking plan. Each time Angry Aussie would leave a space open for his guests, his inconsiderate neighbor would park in that space, blocking him in. Because Angry Aussie lived in a large apartment building, he had no idea which tenant was blocking him in. His first solution to the problem was to peacefully get his neighbor to stop taking his guest spot and blocking him in. Angry Aussie wasn't the type of person to cause confrontation, but he wanted to get the neighbor to stop. He wrote a note to his neighbor asking him not to park in his guest spot on Fridays. Just 1 week later, the horrible neighbor struck again. Angry Aussie was planning to take a trip with his friends, and they were leaving on Saturday. When he went out to his car early Saturday morning, he was blocked in. Angry Aussie was so mad he decided to come up with a new plan. Angry Aussie called the building manager. The tenant got drunk the night before and he didn't move his car on Saturday morning. He didn't seem to care that his actions were constantly affecting other people. Angry Aussie called the building manager, who didn't want to get involved. Finally, Angry Aussie decided to teach his neighbor a lesson. Angry Aussie got his hydraulic jacks and 6 friends. They jacked up the neighbor's car and started rolling it. They wheeled it to the other side of the garage. On the opposite side, there was a support beam with a small parking space behind it. That's where they left his car. He was excited by the thought of his neighbor searching the parking garage for his car. When Angry Aussie returned home from his trip, his neighbor's car was still in the spot where he and his friends had left it. They noticed that the front end of the car was turned, which meant the neighbor tried to move his car but couldn't. A few days later, Angry Aussie realized that the car was gone, but he never saw it again. Finally, he was free to come and go as he pleased. He never wanted it to come to this, but after speaking to the building manager and leaving notes on the neighbor's car, nothing happened. His horrible neighbor kept parking in places where he shouldn't, blocking Angry Aussie in. He knew that he had to take drastic steps to reclaim his parking spot and his freedom to come and go as he pleased. He was thrilled that his problems were finally over.